Revealed, CEO's daughter worked as a cleaner. Her incredible call transformed lives by firing the man who kept her privileged. Sarah Caldwell stood alone in the dimly lit hallway of the law firm, the scent of disinfectant mingling with the stale air. The buzzing fluorescent lights above felt oppressive. Here she was, the daughter of a powerful CEO, scrubbing floors alongside people who had spent their lives laboring with little to show for it. The laughter of her affluent friends under the sun, sipping drinks by the pool, echoed in her mind like a taunt. How could she explain to them, let alone her father, why she traded privilege for the quiet dignity of janitorial work? A longing to bridge two worlds waged war inside her, each side fighting for acknowledgement. Initially, it had felt like a rebellion, a way to separate herself from her father's shadow. But as days turned into weeks, she found solace among her co-workers. The tales they shared of resilience squeezed her heart tight. One colleague, Laura, had struggled to feed her children on a cleaner's wage, while another, Marcus, had been passed over for a promotion because of an unwritten rule that cleaners lacked the ambition of those in suits. The injustice of it pierced Sarah's core, igniting a shift in her narrative. How could she enjoy a world of luxury while those around her, people she had come to care for, suffered indignities she had never witnessed before? As she elbowed a stubborn stain into submission, her father's ambitions for her loomed larger than life. He envisioned her as the future CEO, promoting profitability, not people. That plan clashed violently with her newfound convictions. What good was a corner office if it was built on the backs of neglected workers? The weight of expectation pressed down on her like the dust-clad mop she wielded. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. It all reached a breaking point when John, a seasoned cleaner, was met with contempt after voicing his concerns about working conditions. Sarah had witnessed the scorn on his face, the humiliation that spread like a stain on his life. She couldn't remain silent. But the idea of confronting her father called forth dread. The man who instilled her with purpose also embodied the very system she now questioned. A dread coiled in her stomach as she pictured Sunday dinner, the warmth of their home mingling with the cool dread of inevitability. The words clamored in her mind, what if he doesn't understand? What if I lose him? As the memories of her childhood with him surfaced, family dinners, heartfelt lessons, her heart twisted in anguish. Would this discussion shatter her parents' dream for her future? The thought of picking up the phone to call him gave her no comfort. What if he dismissed her? What if he rebutted her fight for justice with anger laced with disappointment? With trembling fingers ghosting across the screen of her phone, she faced a monumental question. Would she resolve to defend the vulnerable at the cost of her familial bonds? It wasn't just her future on the line, it was a reckoning, a chance for change that hovered in the balance. Taking a deep breath, Sarah steeled herself for the call that could reshape her world or render it unrecognizable. As she gazed into the sweeping expanse of midnight through the law firm's grimy windows, she felt the weight of history pressing down on her. This was the moment. Would she find her voice or relinquish it forever? The line rang, echoing like a ticking clock counting down to an uncertain fate. As the phone rang on the other end, Sarah felt the seconds stretch into an eternity. Anxiety lodged itself in her throat, choking back her words. She pictured the confident expression on her father's face, always sure, always commanding. But beneath that image lay vulnerability, a man built up by the very privileges she now questioned. What would he think of her call, her choices, her defiance? Finally, his familiar voice broke through the silence, polished and authoritative. Sarah. What is going on? Dad, she started, her voice wavering. Each word felt like a stone, heavy and deliberate. I need to talk to you about something important. He hesitated, the air thick with unspoken expectations. Is everything all right? You sound distressed. No, it's not, she blurted out, a surge of emotion flooding her resolve. I've been working as a cleaner, and wait, what? He interrupted, disbelief etching his tone. The warmth that once filled their conversation with ease was gone, replaced by a chill that stung her heart. I'm scrubbing floors, Dad. I've been doing it for weeks, and it's been eye-opening. People like John struggle every day just to get by. They deserve better. Sarah, you can't be serious, he said, his voice sharp with concern. This is not what I've worked for your entire life. You have a bright future ahead of you. Why would you waste it like this? The word stung, cutting through the thick fog of her conviction. How could he not understand? It's not a waste. I've gained so much perspective. I've seen how this system overlooks people who work tirelessly, people who simply want a chance to live with dignity. She could hear him breathing on the other end, a subtle crack in his armor forming. I've built this company for you. They are workers, and their roles are essential, but you are meant for more than this cleaning. The irony in his tone made her pulse quicken. But at what cost, Dad? I don't want a future built on the backs of the overlooked. It's just wrong. Sarah, we can help them, but not this way. The disappointment in his voice weighed heavily, and she feared she was losing him. She swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill. It was difficult to voice her thoughts amidst the raw tension. But don't you see? I care about them. I want to help create real change, not just a facade of success. And how do you plan to achieve that? He countered, skepticism creeping in. I don't know yet, she admitted, contemplating each unfolding possibility. But I have to try. This is not just about me anymore, it's about all the people that you and I have ignored for too long. Don't you want to be part of a solution? Silence enveloped the line, both aware that her words had shifted the ground beneath them. For the first time, she wished she could see his face not as a stern business executive but as her father, a man capable of understanding her heart. Sarah, he finally said, the edge in his voice softened by uncertainty. You are brave. But bravery does not always lend itself to wisdom. This line of thinking could destroy everything. Maybe it could build something better, she replied, a flicker of hope igniting. You know what a legacy means, creating something that lasts, something that matters. Legacy, he repeated thoughtfully, almost regretfully. You're mistaken if you think this is the path to it. I think I've found my path. As she hung up the phone, Sarah felt the weight of his disappointment, but her resolve crystallized. Change wouldn't come from staying silent. She recognized an empowering truth. Her voice had power not just for herself but for those who lacked one. Emboldened, she walked back down the hallway and sought out John. He deserved to know there was hope. He deserved to feel heard. Yet, the direction she needed to take was daunting, requiring a confrontation with her father not just for herself but for the many who lacked advocacy. What else might she uncover as she stood at this fragile junction, ready to embrace the chaos of change? And with those thoughts swirling in her mind, she realized, the true battle was just beginning. Would she embrace her new mission or retreat into the comforts of her past? As she prepared to face whatever came next, the call to action echoed in her heart. The time had come to face the fragility of her decisions and the consequences that might soon follow. Determined to embrace her newly found purpose, Sarah stepped outside, a cool breeze brushing against her skin. Each inhalation reminded her of the empires being built while so many people labored behind the scenes. Gone was the comfort of her previous existence. Instead, a keener awareness enveloped her, igniting a fire within. She couldn't ignore the voices of those she'd encountered. John and others were embodiments of stories demanding to be told. She made her way to John's apartment, heart pounding against her chest with anticipation. Would he be open to sharing his experiences? Would he see the sincerity in her desire to make a difference? A crack in the facade of privilege had opened her eyes, and it seemed only right to share this awakening with someone who lived the raw realities she had only begun to glimpse. Knocking on the door, she felt the weight of her father's incredulity hovering over her. The looming remnants of their conversation lingered in the air, urging her to turn back, yet she refused to allow that to define her. When the door swung open, John's welcoming smile was an immediate balm. "Hey, Sarah. You back for more cleaning?" He joked, but a flicker of concern crossed his face as he sensed the urgency in her expression. "No, I want to talk," she said, her voice steadying as she unfurled her thoughts. "I've been thinking a lot about what we discussed and your story. I want it to be heard. It needs to be heard." He furrowed his brow, skepticism evident. "What do you mean?" "No one listens to us. They rarely care. All the more reason we must be loud. I plan to help others understand what you go through daily, what this life is like beyond the surface. We can advocate for change together," she responded, feeling a sense of agency swell within her. As she spoke, John's expression shifted from wary to intrigued, a subtle smile beginning to form. "You really believe that?" "I do," she asserted, conviction crystallizing in her heart. "But I need you. You have the experience that can open eyes. You can be the voice that shifts perspectives." A wave of hesitation washed over him. "You don't know the kind of backlash that could come. People who reveal truths about their realities often risk everything." "I understand that. But I'm willing to put myself on the line," she countered, determination coursing through her. "If I can acknowledge in this moment, it could mean the world for you and others like you." John paused, searching her gaze for resolution. Finally, he sighed, releasing a breath he didn't know he was holding. "All right, I'll do it. But it won't be easy." That was an understatement. Discussions of hardship could either empower the masses or subject them to scrutiny. The gravity of their undertaking settled between them, thick and palpable. Each word exchanged felt like a pact, a turning point in both of their lives. As they began brainstorming how best to present his story, Sarah found herself immersed in his challenges. She discovered a side of herself she hadn't tapped into, one that relished advocacy and storytelling. Sharing John's truth would mean fighting for dignity, sparking dialogue around the inequalities that lay beneath the surface of her father's empire. But in the back of her mind, the question continued to fester: what would her father say if he discovered what she was about to do? Could he understand the importance of John's narrative? Or would he simply see it as an unwelcome threat to his carefully constructed legacy? Just as they began mapping out strategies for their advocacy, her phone buzzed, a stark reminder of her father's looming presence. As she glanced at the screen, a battle within raged between her past identity and the powerful advocate she yearned to become. With a deep breath, she turned back to John, acknowledging the choice before her. "This is just the beginning. But I have to decide how to deal with the fallout of my father's potential response." And as she felt a wave of uncertainty creep in, she also understood this pivotal moment would either launch her new reality or box her back into the past. Would she choose the fear of confrontation or the exhilarating promise of her newfound mission? The answer lingered within her, ready to unravel in ways she couldn't yet foresee. The sharp buzz of Sarah's phone cut through the air, echoing the conflict brewing inside her. She glanced at the screen, her father's name glaring back at her like a warning. The anticipation of his potential anger, the weight of his expectations, wrapped around her like a tight noose. Yet, amid that fear, the embers of resolve glowed stronger. "Take it," John encouraged, noting the tension gripping her. "I'll be right here." Nodding, she slid her finger across the screen, the familiar voice evoking a sense of unease. "Dad," she answered, forcing a calm that felt as fragile as glass. "Sarah, I need to speak to you about the upcoming board meeting. There are some things we need to discuss regarding the proposal." He launched into a series of corporate updates, the words blurring into a backdrop of her inner turmoil. As he spoke, however, details of their advocacy plan danced through her mind, bright and defiant. She would speak to him later. Right now, she couldn't afford to reveal what she had started. The distance between the two of them felt insurmountable, as if he were speaking from another world entirely, one where loyalty to the family brand dictated all. Once the call ended, she turned back to John, who watched her with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Everything all right?" he asked gently. "It's just business stuff." She waved a hand dismissively, the heaviness not entirely gone. "We need to take the next step. I want to understand how your story can truly resonate with others." They dove back into discussions, John detailing the day-to-day struggles he faced, his voice carrying the weight of every hardship. Yet amidst the raw reality, Sarah found pieces of herself that she had not known existed. Empathy blossomed into passion as she visualized the impact their efforts could have. She wasn't just curating a story, she was fueling a roaring flame of change. They crafted targeted messages designed to capture the essence of his experiences, breaking down barriers like an architect unveiling a new vision. Each word became a brick, building a strong foundation for their cause. She felt powerful, words spilling from her like a river breaking free of its dam. She was no longer the passive observer of life, she was a catalyst, but restlessness gnawed at her, reminding her of the inevitable confrontation with her father. Would he see her advocacy as rebellion? When the moment came and could she hold her ground? The thought of facing that disappointment coiled in her chest, twisting the joy she felt into something bitter. As they wrapped up their brainstorming session, Sarah felt exhilarated yet fearful of the ramifications. She looked at John, who was unaware of the storm brewing inside her. "I think we need to start presenting this to others, maybe through social media, to maximize our outreach," she proposed, her heart racing at the thought. John nodded slowly. "That could work, but it could also bring a lot of attention. Are you prepared for people to come after you? There's bound to be backlash." His words drummed heavily in the silence that followed. In that moment, Sarah saw not just the struggle of advocacy but the shadows of her upbringing. While she had the means and platform to amplify John's voice, she was also standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure if the leap would welcome her liberation or become a plunge into chaos. "I've come this far," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's time to go all in." As she spoke, determination ignited once more, propelling her toward an uncertain future. The tension between her and her father loomed like clouds before a storm, threatening to unleash something fierce. The doorbell rang, and Sarah's pulse quickened. She recognized the sound, not just as an invitation but as a symbol of everything she was about to confront. Her father was here. The moment of decision, the confrontation she had avoided, was upon her. Would she stand firm in her newfound purpose, or allow her past to dictate her choices? With a deep breath, she braced herself for the encounter, the weight of her revelation pressing down as she stepped toward the door. The threshold of her legacy awaited, and the choice loomed large, promising to unravel the very fabric of who she was becoming. As Sarah opened the door, the insistent thud of her heart drummed louder, drowning out her father's authoritative voice and the expectations it carried. His presence filled the entryway, an imposing figure cloaked in the gravitas of corporate success. She took a step back, her mind racing. This was it, no going back now. "Sarah, we need to talk about the board meeting," he began, his tone clipped, an air of impatience wrapped around him like a well-tailored suit. "I've been briefed about some issues in the proposal." She forced a nod as they moved towards the living room. Despite the familiarity of the surroundings, the air crackled with tension. This was not just a routine meeting, it felt like a warning shot, a reminder of the vast chasm separating them. As he settled into the plush leather couch, she wrestled with her resolve, the words she had rehearsed swirling in her head like dervishes. "Dad," about the meeting she finally ventured, her voice steadier than she felt. "There's something important I need to share with you." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet guarded. "What do you mean?" "That proposal we discussed, it's evolved into something bigger. Something more meaningful," she said, her heart pounding, pushing the words through the suffocating fog. I'm working with John on an advocacy plan. It aims to raise awareness about issues that impact our community." His expression shifted from intrigue to disapproval, a storm brewing behind those usually sharp blue eyes. "Advocacy? Sarah, we need to focus on the numbers, on profits. This is not the time to play activist." A rising tide of frustration pressed against her chest. This was the man she had idolized, and yet here he was, closing the door on her passion. She clenched her fists, drawing strength from the fire within. "This is exactly what we need. Our brand could lead real change. We have the platform, and I can help amplify those voices that are silenced. This isn't just about revenue, it's about integrity." He leaned back, steeling himself, his commerce-driven mindset at odds with her growing conviction. "And what makes you think people will care? They're too busy juggling their own lives to pay attention to your advocacy. It will be a distraction, one that will tarnish our reputation." The weight of his words cracked through her resolve, leaving an ache deep within. "But what if it doesn't?" She shot back, emboldened by the risk. "What if it empowers them? People are ready for change, they want to know their concerns are heard. I can make that happen." "How naive," he scoffed, and the rejection stung, reverberating in the hollow space they occupied. "This is not a game, Sarah. You're jeopardizing everything I've built. Everything our family stands for." A moment of silence fell, each second stretching like taffy. The weight of familial loyalty and personal ambition hung heavily in the air. She was torn, balancing her dedication to her father with the obligation she now felt toward the cause. "I can't ignore this call to action, Dad. It's not just about me anymore. That's where you're wrong. It is about you. You owe it to the family," he blustered, anger flickering across his features. But it was at that moment, as she looked into his eyes, that Sarah realized the truth: she owed it to herself first. "I'm sorry," she breathed, her voice cracking, yet clearer than she had expected. "I can't continue to hide behind the family name. I have passions, dreams, and a story that's worth telling even if it creates waves." Suddenly, the door swung open again, and John stepped into the fray, sensing the tension thick as fog. "Are we interrupting?" he asked, a cautious but confident tone in his voice. Sarah's heart raced as she exchanged glances with him. Here was someone who pushed her to confront the dragons lurking in her heritage. She wondered if fortitude could shine amidst familial expectations. The silence stretched, a brittle thread between them, and she realized this moment would define her. She could either shield her dreams, or she could stand and fight. "John, it's time. Let us show them what we're capable of," she said, her resolve crystallizing. Her father's expression darkened. "You have no idea what you're doing," he warned, but the words fell flat in the face of her emerging determination. Was this confrontation the first fracture in the tightly woven tapestry of her life? In choosing this path, what would she lose or gain? As John nodded, a newfound sense of agency coursed through her veins. They were on the threshold of something monumental. The stakes had just risen. Would she truly embrace this journey, or would the fear of familial fallout pull her back into the shadows? In that moment, the room felt electric with possibility, and as she met her father's gaze, a fierce resolve ignited within her. The journey into uncharted waters awaited, and all she could do now was plunge forward. "Get ready," she whispered to herself, anxious to undertake the challenge ahead. The real test had just begun. The following days after the confrontation were a whirlwind. As Sarah sat at her desk, the sunlight streaming through the window felt more significant than ever, illuminating her path forward. She had crossed a threshold, yet the weight of her father's disapproval loomed like a thundercloud. Restlessness manufactured a sense of urgency in her. With her mind racing, she envisioned the advocacy plan in all its potential, the way it could ripple through the community, amplifying voices that had long been muted. Determination pulsed through her veins, but with every surge of adrenaline came doubt. Could she truly balance her father's legacy with her newfound path? The nagging thought echoed, was she even capable of carrying this burden? Sarah, you okay? John's voice broke through her reverie, pulling her back into the present. The concern on his face was tangible. I don't know, she admitted, fiddling with a stack of papers. It feels monumental, what we're attempting. I've never done anything like this before. He leaned against the edge of her desk, crossing his arms. You have to throw that doubt away. You wouldn't have pitched the idea if you didn't believe in it, right? I know, but this isn't just a project for me anymore. It's personal, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I've always played it safe, but this is different. If it fails well, that would be a reflection of me, wouldn't it? John's gaze softened as he regarded her. It wouldn't be a reflection of you, Sarah. It would be a part of the process. Growth doesn't come without risk. This is the chance for you to forge your identity outside of your father's shadow. Embrace that. He was right. Each moment she second-guessed herself, she was yielding power back to her father. Yet, detaching from that legacy was not easy. It felt as if she were teetering on a precipice, the edge crumbling beneath her. With every stake of her confidence, she had to reinforce the belief that her narrative could be one of transformation both for herself and others. Thinking forward, she began drafting a detailed proposal for their advocacy plan, requiring navigation through corporate policy, community outreach, and engagement strategies. Each revision revealed not only the plan's structure but also emerged as a catharsis. The words poured out, loaded with everything she felt yet hadn't had the courage to express in front of her father. As she delved deeper, she unearthed hidden talents, her ability to analyze social issues and identify solutions. Each word strengthened her resolve, cementing the belief that she was not just her father's daughter but an individual with ambitions ripe for cultivation. Have you thought about who you want to partner with? John's interruption brought her back to the present. You don't have to do this alone. Maybe we should reach out to some local activists, she mused. Their insights could provide the authentic narratives we need to amplify our message. It could lend us credibility. Exactly. Let us brainstorm a list, he suggested, his enthusiasm infectious. With fresh energy coursing through her, Sarah grabbed a notebook, her pen flying over the pages as they began to compile a range of potential allies. For the first time, she didn't just see herself as a cog in her father's company, she envisioned a platform where her voice could be elevated, validating her thoughts, dreams, and ambitions. But as she charted this course, her father's voice echoed in her mind, a reminder of the pressures and expectations she had been steeped in for years. Was her father right about the distractions? Would he dismiss her efforts wholesale when they eventually crossed paths again? With every word penned, Sarah embodied courage more deeply. It was evident that the fear of her father's inquisition loomed large, yet the prospect of actualizing her vision began to dull its sharpness. As the evening wore on, she felt rising flames of resolve solidifying within her core. She had begun to see not only the possibility of pursuing her vision but also the responsibility that came with it to shine a light on the stories of those often overlooked. Could she carry this weight? Would her decision lead to liberation or destruction of the familial bond she cherished? Sarah, let us go grab some dinner, John interrupted her thoughts again, breaking through the intoxication of her ideas. Yeah, a break sounds good, she agreed. As they stepped out into the cool evening air, uncertainty danced on the horizon. What if my father's right after all? What if I can't do this? John glanced at her, his expression firm. Then you adapt. You negotiate. You fight. But never give up before you even start. With each step, a world of possibilities unfolded. The night felt like a lullaby of uncharted opportunities. Her path was now clearer, brightened by burgeoning ambition and the courage to step away from the familiar, but that relentless unease lingered. The closer she got to the launch of their idea, the more daunting the thought of her father's response became. There was no turning back now, but what awaited her on the other side of this leap? Would she be ready to face the consequences of her choice? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the pavement, Sarah's heart raced with anticipation. She and John had shared a simple dinner, but it brought clarity amidst the growing chaos in her mind. The conversations echoed in her head as they walked back, their laughter merging with the sounds of the city. Yet, beneath that joyous facade lay a gnawing apprehension. This was no longer just about a project, it was about her identity, her autonomy. With each passing moment, she felt the dichotomy of her life tightening around her father's legacy pulling her one way, while her dreams urged her in another direction. The freedom gained from engaging with John and other potential partners became puzzlingly beautiful, yet fear threatened to overshadow it all. They arrived back at the office, and the glow of the desk lamp beckoned her to work. Sarah settled in, determined to push through the fear clouding her mind. As she reviewed her notes, the adrenaline kicked in once more. She unrolled her latest draft, meticulously dissecting each paragraph. Here lay her burgeoning future, but doubts crept back in, surfacing like specters. What if she failed to embody the intentions of the communities she aimed to uplift? The echo of her father's voice cautioned her against missteps, and the weight of familial expectation felt palpable. "You're in way over your head," it whispered. Every inch of her being wrestled with guilt, torn between wanting to honor her father's legacy yet yearning for personal embrace of this new direction. A few breaths later, she found herself questioning her motivations. Yes, she aimed to help others, but was there a part of her seeking validation, trying to prove her father wrong? The notion nagged at her. If she truly wanted to lead, she needed to blanket herself with authenticity, something she had avoided for too long. She had worked under the prior expectations as a dutiful daughter for most of her life. It was time to dismantle that narrative. With a flicker of resolve igniting, and John's input flooding back to her, she decided to lead with transparency. She would communicate honestly with everyone involved, even addressing the fears of inexperience. Seeking guidance from local activists could create a bridge between her vision and their stories. After all, credible partnerships wouldn't just bring authenticity, they would also amplify voices that needed to be heard. With renewed vigor, Sarah drafted emails to potential partners, highlighting not only her vision but also her commitment to learning. To her surprise, she found herself composing a message that invited their collaboration and insights on how to move forward together. "This isn't about me, it's about us," she concluded, a genuine emotion reflected in the words. As she clicked send, a rush of adrenaline shot through her, but it mingled with a new sense of serenity. She had crafted something real, a foundation built not on self-validation but on shared purpose. Growth began to blossom from her choices. Each decision reflected courage instead of apprehension. That night, sleep eluded her, and thoughts collided erratically as she lay in bed. What if she gathered warmth from her newfound allies only to face scrutiny from her father upon the plan's launch? Would collaboration make her father's critique sting less, or would they hammer deeper into her? The uncertainty of the responses she would receive loomed large, yet she fought sleep to confront those questions. A flicker of resolve ignited as her mind raced. But within that uncertainty brewed the thrill of possibility, a chance to carve out a space where her own voice could flourish without overshadowing others. As dawn approached, Sarah resolved to face her fears, fortified by the steps she had taken. What other facets of her identity remained unexamined? With her vision taking shape, what hidden talents could she tap into next? What awaited her as she stepped fully into the light of her convictions? She would find out soon enough. The morning sun poured through the office windows, illuminating the space with a soft golden glow. Sarah pulled herself into the day, an unusual vitality coursing through her veins. She tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, scanning the messages that had populated her inbox overnight. Her heart quickened as she spotted a response from one of the activists she had reached out to. A company focus was on collaborative dialogues, veering away from the suffocating legacy she had felt bound to uphold. The email, overflowing with enthusiasm, resonated deeply. It was refreshing to see a leader willing to step back and listen, it began, followed by concrete suggestions that seemed almost revolutionary. She could feel a veil of insecurity lifting, revealing pathways she had never dared imagine. Yet, doubt lingered. What if their ideas diverged drastically from her father's expectations? As she weighed the potential backlash, a shadow of hesitation hovered over her burgeoning optimism. What if aligning with them only magnified her perceived inadequacies? She took a deep breath, reminding herself that true leadership often involved navigating through discomfort. Sarah settled into her chair, determined. Utilizing her mentor's advice, she jotted down 2 priorities for the day: listen actively and embrace vulnerability. That simple act clarified her focus and set a professional tone that felt unburdening. She picked up the phone, dialing a number she had memorized from the expert's email. After several rings, a warm voice greeted her. "Sarah? I've been expecting your call." The activist's enthusiasm overflowed, washing over Sarah like a wave of comfort. They discussed potential collaboration that could intertwine their efforts, how local stories could be translated into impactful outreach. As their conversation unfolded, so too did Sarah's understanding of her role. What began as frantic, disjointed thoughts crystallized into a vision remarkably aligned with both her aspirations and theirs. It became crystal clear: the path forward was not just a series of decisions, but a construction of relationships. Each connection represented an opportunity to elevate local narratives while grounding her intentions in authenticity. Wearing her imperfections a badge of her willingness to learn felt oddly liberating. However, there remained an unease that accompanied this new path. With every exhilarating plan created, the ghost of her father's judgment loomed behind her, whispering doubts into her ear. As she hung up, Sarah found herself promising to revisit these conversations frequently, positioning her choices more as bold inquiries than mere directives. That afternoon, she drafted an outline focusing on her newfound mission. Each word was intentional, illuminating her desire to forge an inclusive community rather than produce a solitary narrative. Yet while crafting this document, a flicker of ambition ignited. Could she lead a forum, a roundtable to consolidate these powerful perspectives? The idea sparked a familiar fever, an echo of her past ambitions, now reborn with purpose. But was it ambitious or reckless? Not just for her sake, but for those she hoped to involve. The specter returned, this time with sharper edges and scrutinizing questions, reluctant to fade away. The possibility of failure weighed heavy. But what if it was beyond her faults? What if she failed not just on a personal level, but on the collective level of the community she aimed to uplift? Each question layered complexity, igniting a tension that stirred deeper thoughts. She noted these considerations, unsure yet captivated. The next step had to originate from this cautious exploration. As she closed her notebook, a gnawing sensation rode alongside her emerging confidence. Achievements were not shields but lenses through which to view the world. It filled her with curiosity: what shapes existed within her unresolved fears? How would navigating the realities of vulnerability and honesty shift the expectations set upon her? With a heart oscillating between exhilaration and anxiety, she pulled up her draft of the roundtable invitation. One click away from sharing her idea with the network that had begun to form, she hesitated. Doubts infiltrated her thoughts anew. What awaited her on the other side of that email? The tension clung, heavy and electrifying, and she knew she stood at a precipice. Would her voice echo authentically among the discussions that would arise, or had she stepped too quickly out of her father's shadows? It was time to find out. The weight of her decision pressed against Sarah as she hovered over the send button. A sensation like cold water sliding down her spine reminded her of her vulnerability. She had always respected the facade her father had built, a towering empire that shimmered with success. Yet here she was, on the brink of shattering that illusion with an act of honesty and connection. Could she truly embrace this new identity, or would the echoes of her upbringing drown her in doubt? With a shaky breath, she closed her eyes. This roundtable, even the very idea of it, was a departure from tradition. It wasn't merely about harmonizing voices but allowing them to clash, to resonate, an honest dialogue that could dismantle the comfort of silence once and for all. Could she withstand the turbulence of those exchanges? The truth was, she had so many lingering questions. Just then, a ping jolted her back into the present. The activist she had spoken with earlier had replied, expressing interest in collaborating for the upcoming forum. There it was, an opportunity unfolding in real time. Yet the nature of her anxiety felt like a betrayal against her eagerness. Every keystroke on her computer felt heavy, each one a potential ripple that could drag her backward into the familiar chasm of uncertainty. What if those involved questioned her ability to lead? Her heart raced as she envisioned the looks of skepticism on familiar faces. Would she be able to stand her ground against the established beliefs that had kept her confined? Wrestling with these thoughts, Sarah considered how pushing through could mean leaving behind not just her insecurities but the expectations she had cultivated since childhood. After an internal battle, she finally clicked send, her finger trembling as it left the mouse button. An exhilarating rush flooded her veins, quickly accompanied by the slick silence that seemed to engulf the office once more. In that moment, the office felt both full of possibility and starkly empty, a reminder of her previous life, a life she was deliberately untethering from. Moments cascaded, stretching into an hour filled with restless pacing and frenzied ideas swirling in her mind. She couldn't grasp which thoughts were new and which belonged to the ghosts of her past. Torn between the excitement of innovation and the fear of failure, she remembered the vulnerability she had committed to embody today. Could she share these feelings, these doubts, with her potential collaborators? Would they perceive her openness as a weakness? Or as a strength? In that turmoil, Sarah realized something enlightening: the people she aimed to connect with likely had their own insecurities and apprehensions. What if she invited them in to interact with her uncertainties instead of concealing them? Could vulnerability not only demystify her command but foster a deeper sense of trust among all her partners? No, she whispered to herself, a decision suddenly crystallizing. She would assert her authenticity from the outset. The roundtable would not simply be an exploration of ideas, it would foster an environment where everyone's voice was valued, an experience of shared fragility unveiling collective strength. Sarah sat back at her desk, newly energized, and began drafting another email to her existing contacts. I invite you, not just to share ideas, but to walk with me through the uncertain territory of our shared vulnerabilities, she typed, the words surprising her with their audacity. This was not merely an invitation to collaborate, it was an invitation into her own tumultuous journey. But in the middle of this resurgence, her phone rang, shattering her moment. The name on the screen froze her blood. It was her father. Her mind raced back to a familiar crossroads where expectations and ambitions collided. Would she answer and potentially step back into the shadows? Or would she take a daring leap and speak her truth? She took a deep breath, the choice looming large. This moment could redefine everything. As Sarah stared at her phone, her heart raced with the weight of the decision before her. With trembling hands, she reminded herself of the journey she had undertaken. From a privileged heiress destined for a life of comfort dictated by her father's ambitions to a fervent advocate for those silenced, she was standing on the brink of a transformative leap. With a determined exhale, she pressed the button to accept the call and brought the phone to her ear. "Dad," she said, her voice steady but soft, embodying the resolve she had nurtured deep within. "Sarah. I've been hearing about your plans," he began, the cool authority in his tone unmistakable. "I need to understand what you're trying to accomplish." She took a breath, determined to frame her words with clarity. "I'm advocating for the workers we often overlook, Dad. They deserve to have their voices heard and their stories told. I cannot abide by a system that promotes wealth at the expense of dignity." "Advocacy? You're playing a dangerous game, Sarah," he warned, concern layering his voice. "You could tarnish the family name. Have you considered that?" The shadows of doubt coursed through her, but she pushed through. "I have. I've always considered it, but I can't ignore this passion anymore. This mission isn't about my comfort or reputation, it's about justice. It's about making a tangible difference." A beat of silence followed, and she wondered if he was grappling with the shift she had orchestrated in their dynamic. And what makes you think you can lead this initiative? He challenged, a mix of disbelief and unease thickening the atmosphere. You're an untested player in these waters. I'll find my footing, she countered firmly. I'm seeking guidance from those who know these narratives best. John and the others have lived these experiences. My privilege doesn't discount my conviction, it reinforces my responsibility to use it for good. Sarah, he hesitated, his tone softening. You've always been ambitious, but this could backfire. People won't take kindly to an inexperienced leader stumbling into the world of activism. In that case, let them, she replied, her voice gaining momentum. I'd rather stumble toward change than glide effortlessly into a life of indifference. If I fail, I will learn, and I will fight harder. But standing by and doing nothing isn't an option. Finally, she sensed a crack forming in his expectation. What about the family legacy? Her heart raced as she recognized the pivotal moment that lay before them. Perhaps it's time to redefine what legacy means, Dad. A legacy can be built on compassion, integrity, and actual impact. I want us to be known for more than just our bottom line. Isn't that worth pursuing together? With a heavy pause, his silence spoke volumes. You truly believe that's the path to take? I do, she asserted, the confidence of her convictions filling her voice. Bright futures require brave choices, and if you can embrace that, perhaps we can indeed build something better. But I need you to see me, Dad, as not just your daughter but as an individual with a voice. She could almost hear him weighing her words, battling the years of expectation against her fervent resolve. I'll need time to consider this, he finally responded, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his tone. I understand, she replied, her heart swelling with a newfound affirmation. But remember, legacies don't always have to be flawless. They should also reflect the truths we are willing to face head-on. With the call ending, Sarah could feel the palpable shift in their relationship. She knew she had taken the first step toward personal liberation while navigating the concerns of her father, a move that was both courageous and necessary. Empowered by the dialogue, Sarah turned to the next steps for her advocacy initiative with renewed purpose. She gathered her coalition of activists, workers, and community members to join her in crafting a narrative that highlighted their shared experiences. Together, they prepared for the roundtable discussion that would honor the complexities of their stories pointing toward hope, resilience, and the urgent need for change. As she stood in her office that day, a palpable sense of accomplishment filled her. She had courageously bridged the gap between her familial expectations and her fervent convictions. The outcome of her father's contemplation remained unknown, however, her heart brimmed with pride for what she had forged independently. This journey had not merely been about confronting her father's ambitions, it had been about forging her identity with integrity, clarity, and a profound commitment to those she aimed to uplift. The journey ahead still held uncertainty, yet Sarah now firmly grasped her capability to make impactful strides. As bricks of connection were laid, she envisioned a broader pathway forged by unity, authenticity, and shared vulnerability. This was no longer simply her story but a collective movement, one she was wholly ready to embrace. In this thrilling moment of self-actualization, she felt immense satisfaction. She had stepped into the light, owning her narrative and reconciling her past with the hopeful conclusion of her future. It was her time to shine. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.